I want to welcome everybody to this morning's committee hearing. I'm joined today with my friend and colleague Ed Reyes. Mr. City Attorney, we do not have a quorum at this point, so we will proceed and all of the actions will be deemed to communicate from the chair. I anticipate a rather light agenda because, see, I knew, Mr. Reyes, that you were going to be bearded, and I just didn't want you to have to work, you know, since you look so young and
Okay. As long as you didn't say wounded.
Right, no, and vibrant. Now, I'm just, if I remember correctly, you've done this before.
Right, it's a
Is
recess ritual.
Is that what it is?
That's right. Now I have to make sure I come back to work, and then one day I'll shave.
Doesn't it itch? Doesn't it itch?
Not at all.
See, I'm just jealous because I can't grow a beard, so that's all. Anyway, let's start off, Ms. Barclay, if you could read items, we'll start with item 1.
Yes, sir. Item 1 is a report from the Community Redevelopment Agency and the City Administrative Officer and a resolution relative to construction of a public park on CRA-owned land located at 1015 South Wilton Place in the Wilshire Center Koreatown Recovery Redevelopment Project area and subsequent conveyance of the park to the city.
Okay, item 1, we will adopt the CAO report. Again, these actions will be communiques from the chair until we get a quorum, if we get one. Item 2.
Item 2 is a report from the CRA and the CAO relative to a sole source contract for 1 year with Korean American Federation of Los Angeles for the dissemination of redevelopment information in the Wilshire Center Koreatown Redevelopment Project area.
Okay, item 2 will adopt the CAO report as well. Item 3.
Item 3 is a report from the CRA and the CLA relative to a grant contract between the CRA and Public Counsel for a pilot program to provide housing-related consultant services at housing developments in the City Center, Central Industrial, and Council District 9 corridors south of the Santa Monica Freeway redevelopment project areas.
Okay, on item 3, we'll adopt the CLA report. That brings us to item 4.
Item 4 is the CRA and CLA reports relative to terminating an owner participation agreement with Omninet San Pedro LLC.
Okay, item 4 will adopt the CLA report. Item 5.
Item 5 is reports from the CRA and the CLA relative to executing a novation agreement with Idaris Inc. in order to assign and transfer 3 existing contracts that were entered into with Meyer Mohade Associates.
Okay, then we'll adopt the CLA report on item 5. I'm going to hold for now item 6. Mr. Cardenas may have a question or two about that. So item 7.
Item 7 is reports from the Los Angeles Housing Department and the City Administrative Officer and Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act of 1982, resolution and minutes relative to MacArthur Park Metro Apartments project.
Okay, then we will adopt the CAO report on item 7. Item 9.
Item 9 is a motion, Labange Garcetti, relative to providing funds to Good Shepherd Center to allow mother-child residents to remain open.
Okay, on item 9, we will adopt that motion. All of these items will be deemed communiques from the chair. I have a card on item 8 from Jim Clark. Jim, if you could come forward, and Ms. Barclay, if you would read item 8.
Item 8 is a motion, Weston Parks, relative to preparing a comprehensive report of necessary technical amendments to the rent stabilization ordinance and the housing code.
Good morning.
Good morning. Very fine article this morning in the LA Times.
Hey,
Mr. Chair.
Some days.
Well, let me tell you, at mid-2010 for the Blue Line,
Well,
we'll see.
usually I wake up in the morning to read the LA Times to make sure my name is not in it. So today today was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah. Very simply, I just wanted to thank the chair and Councilmember Parks for this motion. I want to volunteer any of our resources, our general counsel, to help with this. Should it pass with City Council? Very simply, that's all I'm here to do.
Have you,
For the record.
you two been programming on this?
Well, we've been chit-chatting, but we committed to get together after the recess.
Okay, so when that happens, brief me. Anyway, thank you, and it's good to see you.
You too. Thank you.
All right, on item 8, then we'll adopt that motion as well. As a communique from the chair, that brings us, in fact, you know what, Jim, why don't you just come back? Yeah, just look.
It's going to be a simple
read item 10, and Jim also has a card on item 10.
Item 10 is reports from the LHD and the CAO relative to executing a contract in an amount not to exceed $150,000 with S. Groner Associates, Inc. for the design and development of a rent stabilization and code enforcement outreach program.
Very simply, again, I want to offer our resources. We're one side of we're the 50% of the puzzle there, and it seems that every time one of these outreach contracts is granted to someone, we never talk to them. So we have obviously the resources to communicate with rental property owners, landlords, and we want to be part of this program. That's it.
Okay. All right, do we have the department people here on this item? If you could come forward. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You don't fight over who begins to.
All right.
Is that Michelle? Sit. You have to take a seat. No, you don't. It's good to see you. How's your daughter? Very well. Okay.
My name is Anna Ortega. I'm the Assistant Director of the Rent Division in the Housing Department. This contract is a $150,000 contract for tenant and landlord outreach, including emphasis on foreclosure prevention and programs. It was done through an RFP process where there was extensive outreach. There were 11 submittals that were evaluated closely. We then interviewed the top 3 scorers, and the firm selected, Stan Groner and Associates, is the highest ranking, who impressed all of the committee members with their qualifications and their proposals for outreach, which we think will help us to develop a program. We want something that's innovative, that helps us reach all of our target audience, the specialized subgroups. We want them to use new technologies and help us reach all of the landlords and tenants in the city of Los Angeles and educate them about their rights and responsibilities. One of the things that we've been finding through the rent study and other issues that have been going on is that while we offer many programs and lots of help, landlords and tenants are often just unaware of what's available. So the goal of this is to help us get the word out.
Who was on the committee that selected this vendor? Who made the decision? I mean, who was the group of people that, you said it was, I thought you said committee.
Yes.
You said they impressed the committee.
Yes. It was someone from our policy group. It was myself, and it was our hearing officer, together with management. So one group of people evaluated the written proposals, and then the top scorers were interviewed, and that interview panel included, again, our policy member, our assistant general manager, Mr. Aldape, and myself.
Mr. Reyes, did you have a question?
Yeah. This was moved on December of '08, correct?
Yes.
And 7 months later, we're now deciding on who's going to do the service. That's what this entity will be conducting programs based on what this report indicates. What does this achieve? I mean, I'm looking at, don't folks already know how to get to our services? I mean, what is the added value to this process?
We're actually finding, Councilman, that people don't know how to access our services.
No, that I know, but that's what I want to understand. How does this create added value? How is this going to make a difference? Like, what do you see happening here that's going to make a difference, given what we're already doing?
We're especially excited about their proposals to utilize new technology. We also know that renters, for example, are often low income, and so we need to find the right media to reach as many people as we can. And the people that we have selected are experts in media and that sort of outreach also. We want the whole enchilada from them, of all kinds of different avenues to reach all of the different target audiences, both landlords and tenants, some of whom are not very sophisticated and some who are.
Well, just kind of give me an example. Walk me through what would be a successful experience with this group. What would indicate to you that you've achieved your goal?
If I can take a stab at that.
Please.
Okay, having been new to the city family and having been on the outside in the nonprofit, it became evidently clear that the department lacked an ability to communicate its services, having been on the outside. Now, having been on the inside, it became my task to develop an outreach program, a landlord-tenant rent stabilization, systematic code enforcement, or housing code enforcement type of program. Now, we all have the traditional type of outreach, the grassroots type of traditional outreach. What we don't have in the department is the ability to utilize new technology to do a more massive outreach, to educate the landlords and educate the tenants. There's no secret in the city that we face a housing crisis. The foreclosure situation has turned homeowners into renters, has turned lenders into home landlords. But with that pool of folks, what they don't understand, with the introduction of that new pool of renters and owners, we have to give them the ability to understand what their rights and responsibilities are under the RSO and under the systematic code enforcement program, how to maintain their properties. But let me give you an example. It has always been the objective of the department in terms of an outreach is to develop what we call a big Sunday, to utilize faith-based organizations to come out on Sunday and have this massive landlord-tenant outreach and educational program. And we would hope that this contractor would be able to develop the system by which to outreach and be effective in that type of program.
Okay, so let me give you a case example of
Sure.
what we've been going through in our city, and this is one example. You have a person who finds himself in where the banks are trying to take away the property through foreclosure proceedings. Person defends himself, sends out notices, does all the legal work necessary to make sure that they are buying as much time as possible to figure out how to create a solution. The banks send out their brokers, the real estate industry comes out with their people to try to take the property to sell it out from under them. And the subject who is defending their property can prove that they sent out materials through mail, and the banks choose to ignore it. They start bullying the tenant, they start bullying the person trying to keep their property. How does this service work in that case?
Well, I think part of the effort would be to try to get to that situation. And the way you prevent that situation from happening is by educating and outreaching to folks, to the lenders, to the realtors, and to the tenants, and informing them on what their rights and responsibilities are under the RSO. As you know, this item was, there was additional money added to hire a housing investigator in order to do a foreclosure component of this outreach. Let me just make one thing real clear. This item is simply to hire a contractor to develop a plan, a landlord-tenant rent code outreach plan that would be implemented by the staff of the department. It's not something that they will do. These folks do and the reason why we chose them is because they've had history with the City of Los Angeles. In fact, the several references that were provided by them were provided by the Department of Public Works, and they were provided by 2 other agencies within the city that have utilized.
So they're the architects,
Yeah.
and you're the implementers.
We are the implementers.
Okay,
We just need somebody to be able to merge the state-of-the-art technology with the grassroots traditional land
Okay.
process.
okay. Thank you for putting that in perspective. I was envisioning that we were moving in a direction, we're going to add more services, we're going to be able to identify entities that would be able to help our tenants and our landlords to reach solutions, to take it to another level, but this is the most basic fundamental step you're taking.
These folks have enough experience whereby I think they can leverage the type of resources or contacts they have, for example, Channel 35, PSAs, and so we can utilize those type of contacts in order to leverage the outreach.
And that's what you meant by the whole enchilada? And that's what you meant by the whole enchilada?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So, I appreciate that. It's 7 months later, though. It's December 8th. We moved on. The council had this directive. I know there's a lot on your plate. How soon will it take to start actually implementing?
This is a year contract. We have a timeline provided by them that's attached to our transmittal, or actually to the CAO report. We assuming this contract goes forward, we are already communicating with them in terms of what their ideas are and what we feel are what should be covered.
Thank you.
And to answer your question specifically, as fast as this council or this body can move it forward.
Okay, so now the ball's in our court.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we've been joined by our newest member, Richard Alarcon. What?
Oldest.
You're going to have to learn the rules. Andrew, let's give him rules of decorum. And Ms. Perry and from the 9th District is here. And Mr. Cardenas. Mr. Cardenas, before you arrived, Mr. Reyes indicated that his beard is part of a what did you call it? Recess ritual. I'm curious if that is is that the same in your case as well? I mean, I like him. I mean, it's cool.
That's actually the same reason for me, but Councilmember Alarcon is interpreting that I've been watching too many commercials, beer commercials.
Oh, so you're the most interesting, the most...
Greg Smith just asked me if I really did teach my dog how to bark in French, and I said, no, Cesar Milan did that to me.
So you're the most, now that I will never, ever forget. So you know I'm going to use, that's a good one. I don't always drink beer. But when I do.
And that we know, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, on item 10, then you do have a question on item 10. And Mr. Cardenas, you should know that I held item 6
Yeah, I have a quick question.
for you. So when we finish this, we'll vote on the other things, and then we'll go to item 6 for you.
Thank you. Thank
Okay,
you.
Mr. Cardenas.
Thank you. On item number 10, I want to add an instruction to the Housing Department, and I'm assuming this instruction will make it more consistent with the housing element that we've written. The instruction is this, that the LA Housing Department to include a requirement in the contract scope of work to develop a strategy to ensure that first-time home owners and first-time managers, as expressed in the housing element of the RSO regulated properties, are made aware of their rights and responsibilities according to the ordinance.
Yes.
And without. Mr. Alacon.
Yeah, I just have a couple of things. First of all, to add on to what Mr. Edwards said, I was going to say Ruben Blades with the beard, but
You gotta throw that out there.
I had to throw it out there. You have to compete with the most interesting man in the world. Yeah, I think Ruben Blades beats him. But anyway,
His bear hugs is, he really is hugging a bear. I mean,
you painted a really interesting picture. The fact is that over 70% of the families in Los Angeles are now renting, and that's a scenario that was never contemplated by our forefathers, and frankly in the plans of the city of Los Angeles, and it's getting worse, and we are creating a society with no assets and no collateral. And our credit worthiness as a society is diminishing greatly, and I think it has a lot to do with the fact that our home ownership ratio is miserable. So, but that also begs the question: how could they possibly know? How could 70% of the families, not 70% of the population, it's more like 80 or 90% of the population, but how could 70% of the families know their rights and responsibilities with regard to these kinds of technical issues when we have to discuss them at length? So it's a great challenge. I would think, is there, the first question I have is there some kind of triggering mechanism that we could point to require that landlords have to do something at some point, or they won't get something? Is there some kind of filing they have to do? Is there some kind of, I mean, because it's an agreement typically between the owner and the tenant. For example, I'm talking a lot about the foreclosed homes, where we literally have tens of thousands of homes now that have been foreclosed upon and might have transitioned into rentals. And all they have to do is verbalize an agreement with the renter, or have a paper agreement, but it doesn't go anywhere. I mean, they don't file it with the city, do they?
No, they did not.
So it seems to me that our greatest challenge is going to be to get to those renters and let them know what their rights are. And then we're always going to be in responsive position. I mean, I think where they're going to complain to us. They're not going to tell us about the agreement, and then they're going to complain to us after the fact, and we're going to have to try and sort it out. So this outreach effort is critical, I think, to the next generation in terms of how we deal as a legalistic society. And I would hope that also the group that I think Ed was referring to, people who unknowingly have fallen out of rent control when they really didn't, that wasn't their goal, they didn't want to do it, they may not have even known they had rent control, but they need to understand those rights better. Is the contractor reaching out to them to sort of re-explain how to get back into a rent control situation?
Well, one of the folk is, I will stipulate that it will definitely be a challenge given the size and size of the population of the tenants in the city of Los Angeles. So that's no secret to us. Hopefully this contractor will be able to design a program. And one of the items in the scope of work is to reach out to the moms and pops types of landlords who for various reasons may not know about what their rights are or what their responsibilities are in terms under the RSO and under the housing code. So we will make sure that they do it, that they will design the program to do the effective outreach. You know, nowadays the technology is no longer going knocking on doors, and that's what I mean by grassroots organizations, the grassroots types of organizing. Nowadays everything is through your cell phone, through your computer, through the internet, and I think for folks, I'll give you an example. We can envision that if tenants who have issues in regards to what their rights are under the RSO would be able to go onto their iPhone and access our website and go into a brief fact Q&A type of sheet that would give them their answer in terms of, for example, what can the landlord do? What is the percentage of rent that the landlord can raise this year? Because it changes from year to year. So we envision that, but it also has a couple.
But I'm losing you on the iPhone. I'm not talking about, I don't know what tenants you're talking about, but the tenants I'm talking about don't have iPhones.
I understand that, and my second part of the statement was going to be, combined with that and the traditional type of grassroots organizations, for example, going out to community meetings. For example, we're scheduled to go this Thursday to address the Oak Ridge mobile home park, and to advise your constituents whether or not.
Man, you know how to play the political fiddle, huh?
Whether or not that mobile home is subject to the RSO.
Yeah.
So you have to have a combination of both type of outreach.
Well, I think it might be more effective to go to Telemundo or go to Univision and just do one set of blast messages, because I guarantee they know who the most interesting man in the world is, but they don't know what their rights are with regard to rental policy. So we may need to do a blended thing. By the way, you mentioned the Oak Ridge, and I thank you for that, because the piece that I did want to add is to ask the team to outreach to mobile home tenants, because while they own their home, they do not own the underlying lease, and we sometimes forget that they are under rent control as well. In fact, the state is trying to undermine some of their rights as we speak, and so we want to include them in so that they're very knowledgeable about their rights. We've had many issues, and thank you for helping with Oak Ridge.
And as I said, hopefully this contractor, through their contacts, will be able to leverage Univision, La Piñon type of contacts in order to get the word out to the.
Not to be lost on that, but is the mobile home parks are included in the contract?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Then, without objection, we will adopt the CAO report with the amendment to Mr. Cardenas' amendments as well.
Mr. Chair, in addition to the amendments Mr. Cardenas and Mr. Alarcon made, there was also an amendment provided to the clerk to instruct the LHD to return when the outreach program design is complete and report to the committee.
Fine. That's fine. Okay. Members, if you don't have any objection, we acted on items 1 through 5 and 7 through 9. So if there are no questions or concerns, could you, Mr. City Attorney, consider that, or not consider that, but add those names to the vote tally?
Yes.
That brings us to item 6. Ms. Barclay, please read item 6.
Yes, sir. Item 6 is a report from the CRA relative to the status of program income generated by the Community Development Block Grant funded projects for the period of October 1st, 2008 through March 31st, 2009.
Okay, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Ron Nagai, and this is Ross Muller from both from the CRA.
Mr. Cardenas?
Thank you. Gentlemen, I just have a few questions. It appears that, according to the report, that 2 amounts were remitted to CDD through the year.
That's correct, Councilman.
And so it appears that at this point in time, the figures have been reconciled and there's no amount due CDD at this time?
That's correct, and CDD concurs.
Okay, so CDD does concur. Okay. Now, can you explain to me, or maybe CDD might be the better organization to answer this question. Apparently, the feds are pretty strict on these funds and the accuracy of those transfers, et cetera, and so serious that if they disagree with us and we lose, they tell us, give us the money back in cash. So how do we make sure that we don't make any mistakes? What are we doing to make sure that both agencies are communicating and not only agreeing, but agreeing in a fashion that satisfies the feds?
Yeah, well, most of these monies that get transmitted to CDD come from what you call loan repayments. The loan repayments may either be the normal amortization that's due monthly, or in some cases, because of the lower interest rates in the prior years, they do refinance. In which case, in a refinance, there will be a principal payment because there's a due on sale clause on these loans. They go through our customer systems. We accumulate them once every 3 months, and within 30 days, we transmit it to CDD, and that is our agreement with CDD.
Okay. So, again, is somebody here from CDD?
And CDD has come over at least once a year to take a look at these revenues, and I believe they have been okay with it.
Okay. So at the end of the day, the responsibility to the feds are communicating with CDD on this issue. They're not going to be communicating with CRA. CRA is a,
Sub-grant.
exactly.
Robert Sines, Assistant General Manager. Yes, sir. HUD communicates with us. We're the prime contact with HUD. So any audits that would happen from HUD will be with us. We actually receive their information. We actually audit and monitor what their information that they're telling us is correct.
Okay. So, Mr. Chair, is the contemplated action of this committee going to be to receive and file, but to also instruct CDD to audit the agency?
Well, what were the amendments on this? Because I know we were going to adopt the CRA report with the amendments.
Yes, our recommendation was that that the CDD be instructed to audit the CRA's assessments of program income and report at the time of subsequent reports that they are in agreement with the CRA's estimations as the grant administrator.
Would you like to add
Yeah,
something
that's
to that,
exactly
or
what-
you're good with that?
Good with that.
Okay.
Is there a disparity between the federal government, what we anticipated was our eligible CDBG versus what the federal government has?
No, we haven't had no issues on the program income.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
would it be too soon to ask them to come back in 90 days?
Is that realistic?
No, that's realistic. That'd be great.
Can we add that in?
And can Ms. Barclay, that will be added into the amendments, that they return to this committee within 90 days.
Yes, sir.
Okay, seeing no more questions or concerns, item 6, we'll adopt the CRA report with the amendments. Ms. Barclay, is there any further business before this committee?
No, sir.
This committee is adjourned.
We're running committee, sir.
Now, I want to raise your hand.